right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to November 9th. Get your shift together. Today it is storming here in Florida, and I see lots of Florida faces on here. So Erica is in an area where looks like she's going to be hit pretty directly. So we chatted today
Oh, it's
about
coming.
it. Yeah, it's coming for you, Steve. But we chatted today and decided that we wanted to be super conscious of what everyone has going on and not make people choose between coming to a Zoom and get ready for the storm. So we are pushing our marketing meeting off till next week. And we are going to be today just doing a Q&A and kind of a best practice share, just so that we can keep connected on here. And yeah, so I'm thinking my thoughts are just, if anyone has questions or if anyone has something that's really, really working for them right now, you can go ahead and start it off and we can go from there. And if no one says anything, I'm totally calling on Melissa, which she already knew that was coming. So, does anyone have anything? All right, Melissa, what do you have for us today?
So today, I have been, what's working is being really intentional with how I'm spending my time. And so, not that I necessarily have a hard time telling people no, but there are some things that I still say yes to. And so I really had to kind of reassess my goals, look at my year this year, look at where I'm heading next year and the next 3 to 5 years, and had to kind of just reassess. And so really being intentional with my time, making some hard decisions, and just not being sorry about it, which is kind of hard.
So I wrote down 3 notes from that. One, being intentional with your time. Two, setting goals, like not just short term, but some pretty long-term goals too. And then the last thing I heard, I don't know if this is what you meant, but I heard saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes there's things that you really enjoy, but it doesn't always align anymore with what you have going on. And not that it means that I can't come back, but just right now in this season, I just got to prioritize, kind of what's going on so that I can make time for the things that I really want to really like do and be present in, which is like my family, so.
It's funny that you say that, because when I was thinking of like questions I wanted to bring today, they were about time management and boundary setting. And you just started off with both of that. So,
Yeah.
does anyone else have any, like, or is anyone like struggling with time management or have any time management tips? Because I will tell you, I wrote down my strengths and weaknesses on Monday, and time management was at the top of that list. So cool.
Which side?
What'd you say?
Which side, a strength or a weakness?
Oh, a weak, an area. I don't call it a weakness, actually. It's an area for growth opportunity. It's an opportunity for me to grow somewhere. So
Very good.
yeah. Um, I'm a yes person. I say yes to all the things because I love to do all the things. So, can you give us some examples of, like how you're, I guess start with like setting intentions. And is that like, did you go into goal setting after you started setting intentions?
Um, No, I looked at kind of what my goals were. I'm a visionary. Like did my, I don't know if you guys have ever done like your strength finders kind of test. It's one of those disc kind of personality things, but I did that a few years ago, and it tells you kind of what your top 5 strengths are. And in my top 5 strengths, I'm futuristic. I have a futuristic, that's just, which I totally get. Like I can see the future, I can see the vision. And so sometimes I get stuck there. So I always like to start there. Like, what is it? What do I want to achieve? And not only for business, but like personal projects, things with my family, and then kind of work backwards. And then I set my intentions on how I'm going to go, then move forward to reach those goals, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
working backwards. And then are you just looking at like activities as they come in, or do you have kind of like a filter for that?
Some of my things are reoccurring, and I do look at things as they come in. Like for example, you know, I'm up again to serve at my board, you know, and I had to make a decision. I love doing it and I want to do it, you know, but I had to decide like, okay, do I still have the time that I can to be able to do that to my full capabilities, you know? You know, so sometimes I have to, when things like that kind of come up where I have to readjust and rethink just to make sure instead of just continuing to commit, I needed to just kind of have that conversation and look at my time. And I'm like, yes, I do have time for that. I do still want to do that. I love what, you know, getting to serve our members. And so that's still going to be a yes for me. So, you know, things like that. Sometimes it is activities that come up, you know, but I just have to see, is it aligned with what I'm doing? Is it aligned with my purpose that I have for myself in life? That kind of helps me. It's easier for when I look at it in that lens, it's easier for me to then say yes or no.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Does anyone else have anything to add? And you guys can unmute at any time and just add stuff in on that. One thing I did earlier this week, like I mentioned, I went through strengths and weaknesses. I actually went through like all these papers sitting on my desk right here. I went through what my core values are, and I went through my core values in life and then my core values in my business. And they're similar, right? Like a lot of them cross over. And from there, that's kind of where I went into, I wrote a mission statement and a vision statement for myself, for my life. And I kind of went into like designing my life from there. So that was one of the things I did. And then like figured out who I am too, as and like who I want to be as like not just the real estate agent, like what do I want to bring to people's lives, you know, because when you're doing mission statements and vision statements, has anyone done any of those before on here? Yes.
Yeah.
Did you do them at the board or did you do it for your new brokerage?
For the brokerage. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I found like I've done them for our realtor association, and it was very unselfish when I was doing it, I guess, because it was for others. But doing them for me really helped me figure out like what direction do I want to take my business in. And like you said, like it's the saying no, and like how are we filtering what activities we're doing, and you know, like what are our priorities. So for example, you know, for my values for myself, I have health as one of the top ones. And when I look at my actions, no one's going to say, oh yeah, health is her priority, right? Is one of her, because I'm not acting in such a way, but my health is super important to me. Right. And, you know, so I know now moving forward, like I need to make that yoga class that I say I'm going to do in the morning versus hitting my snooze alarm. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was a super interesting thing that I noticed with it. Is it Nisa? Is that how you pronounce it? Do you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Well, what I was going to say with time management is, I don't know about everyone else on the call, but I'm a newer agent. So I actually got my license like 2 weeks before COVID. So with time management wise, like I'm trying to actually figure out a schedule in real estate because for the last 2-3 years, it's been just hectic. So it's whenever a buyer wants to go see a house, and I'm just like constantly like jumping to what the buyers want. Because I've been working with a lot of buyers. And so I'm like now trying to figure out, I don't even know what my schedule is. Like because I haven't really had to think about my own wants and needs, because it's just been like helping everyone else the past couple of years.
Oh, girl, speaking to my heart.
Yeah, it's the difference between being proactive and being reactive. And when we're living in a reactive state, that's when we feel chaotic. And that's when like for me, my internal clock feels like kind of like a tornado, right? Like I'm just like going from place to place to place, trying to catch up at all times. So yeah, definitely relatable. And I think probably every single person on this call is like, yep, definitely been there.
So can I say something? Because I there was a moment where, I mean, I got my license before COVID, but there was a moment, Nisa, when I had the same problem, and I almost gave up in real estate because I was like, I had a coach, but I called her and I was like, girl, I think I'm done. Like I can't even think. And it was in the middle of 2020. And I was, because 2020 happened and I had to be mom, I had to be school teacher. My kids are in elementary school, and that's where I was needed. I could not do real estate, and so I had to make a decision. Like, I almost quit that year. She's like, okay, well, let's not do that. And so she challenged me to make myself a priority, like choose me first every time and start there. Whenever you're going to think about time blocking and trying to prioritize things, you have to be number one, and then decide how many hours a day can you work? And so I decided at that time, I only had 4 hours a day. That was all I had. And I had to break it up throughout the day, And then so in that 4 hours, then I had to decide, what am I actually going to do to maximize my time? Because I can't spend an hour thinking about what I'm going to do. And so that's where I really started to think about my time management, was thinking and being proactive, like Megan said, was thinking about, okay, what am I going to actually do? Which meant I had to decide which ways were I going to lead generate, and so being very specific about that, and then being very specific about how that was going to show up so I could get the most I could get done. And then what I found after all that was the amount of, prior to that, I could spend 8 hours, 9 hours a day in real estate, and I was much more productive in those 4 hours than I ever had been. And so that's when I really started to pay attention to my calendar, and we started to become one. And so I started to break down what I had to do into categories. And so I had lead generation, customer retention, admin work, because we all have a little bit of admin work we have to do, personal development, me time, and family time. And for those that know me, I use a paper calendar and I use a highlighting system. And so I had 6 different highlighter colors, and I would put things on my calendar and highlight so I can visually see where was I spending my time. And then I was able to kind of readjust, and it took a while to really find a rhythm, but I was able to adjust my time to find what my balance was in my life with work and my life, personal stuff. And so that's kind of how I got started. And ever since then, it's just what I do every Sunday without fail. I spend a good hour or two planning everything out. And that helps me stay sane, and I'm much more productive when I do that.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think when we're talking about time management, kind of like the plan to fail, or the fail to plan and you're planning to fail. You guys all know what I meant. So I think like you said, Melissa, your schedule is gonna start with, the beginning of the week and setting yourself up. I call your Sunday night activities, I call them like my future self thankful future self. So like when I make the coffee the night before and put it on the smart plug that's going to go off at 5:30, I call that like my future self will thank me, like those activities. When I pick out my clothes at the beginning of the week, I call those like future self thankful activities. And so just doing those things in advance, I think are super, super helpful. There's a phrase that goes, master your morning and you'll master your day. I think a lot of it has to do with mastering the night before as well. And so you're setting yourself up for success the night before. Have you guys read The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents? Okay, that book I highly, highly recommend. Everyone reads that book. It is an easy breezy read. It's a story. It's a mortgage broker is married to a real estate agent. It's all about a real estate agent who kind of fell off his game, and he's getting his morning back, and he does savers. So it's 6 activities, and it's like scribing, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and silence, I think is the last one. And so it talks about getting your toothbrush out and having like your toothpaste ready for it the night before, pouring a glass of water and having it on your nightstand or even on your countertop so that you're hydrating yourself in the morning. I think those little things are what's really, really key. Steve, I'm going to pick on you because you talked about meditating this morning. What does your morning routine look like?
Yeah, so it's similar to that. I haven't read the specific real estate one, but I've read the Miracle Morning book. For me, it's a couple things, right? So I'm an early riser, not always because I like it, just because, right, that's when I can take the time for myself. So it's important for me to I'll meditate first. Well, I'll always drink a cup of water first, think about my life for a second, meditate, just journal, like free write. I've tried like different specific journals, do this about yourself, do that. I've never fully stuck with it or really like. I just kind of like to like free write for however long, 5-10 minutes on just whatever kind of whatever thought or topic. And then I'll switch between either exercising first and then reading after, read for like 15-30 and then exercise. And then I would throw in like, I just call it like thinking, because when I walk my dog, I try like no AirPods or sound or anything, just kind of like get to go have thoughts for the day.
That is literally the same exact routine. So I guess the book has the same routine for all of it. And how do you feel like your day goes when you don't get that stuff? Like when you don't have the chance to do that?
Awful.
Yeah, like reactive and
Yeah, constantly chasing. Like if it's like, well, I didn't have time for that. Like I must be chasing something all day. I'm already behind.
yeah. That's so interesting how like we all are like very different, you know, like you're in mortgage and we're all in different spots, but all of us are like so agreeing on that feeling that if we don't have our morning routine, then we're off base. Did anyone else want to add in like some things that they do in the morning that are super helpful for them? I think Taylor, yeah, there you go.
I actually fell off of this habit for a little while, but taking a walk in the morning, like to get up, eat breakfast, and just take a walk, no matter how long, even if it's just around the neighborhood, if you're listening to a podcast, if you're making your phone calls for the morning. And that's what I got really good at when I would do this habit. I'm trying to get back into it, but bringing my earbuds, making my calls on a walk in the morning, and you feel so productive getting your day started that way.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point about the walking too, is I mean, I'm sure everyone on here can tell a difference when you're standing up and making calls, right? Like that's one of the things that coaches say a lot of times is like, when you're making your calls, stand up. Oh no power already going out. But yeah, like standing up, making your calls. I learned really early on to smile when I'm on the phone. So like now I'm always smiling. It does not matter who I'm talking to, like just like a big cheesy grin.
Yeah.
I'm like about
Smile and dial.
Yeah.
Huh?
But I think the walking is a really awesome tip too, because you're exercising, and if you're doing it while you're making your calls, you're getting that other piece in there, you're prospecting. Leah, we're just talking about morning routine. So do you have a morning routine that you follow?
So that's something I really need to work on. I feel like someone mentioned earlier that I was so busy the last like 8 months that it was kind of like I had appointments set and I would just get up and do those. And it's changed a lot in the past couple weeks. So I need to get better about it. I'm trying to do like gratitude in the morning or something, but I've definitely, since the time change especially, and then I was just traveling, like hitting snooze has been bad this week. I'm like, I don't have much, on the calendar in the morning. So it's been hard to motivate myself to do, some sort of routine, but definitely have to work on it.
Yeah, I think that's ringing true to all of us. And especially as we go into the holiday season, I think it's something that is going to be super important. I'm somebody who doesn't want to coast through the holidays. I don't want to. I really have done a pretty good job in the past years of my career to not let that happen. Only because when we slow down, it doesn't affect the next 30 days, right? We're affecting like time out front. And so if we're in, what's it called? Not motivation. I can't think of the word, but when you're like on a roll, you know what I'm talking about? And then you stop, and then it's like dead stop. And to get that ball back, that snowball back rolling, it's so challenging to do. So I would challenge everyone on this call to work on that morning routine, just so that we can stay productive during the holidays. One thing that,
if I can throw in real quick about starting it, Leah, because I know you kind of said you're struggling with that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put it on yourself to do everything tomorrow, to be like, I'm going to do all 5-6 things every day starting tomorrow, because then you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, I suck. Like, I can't do anything, right? Take it with, right, just one thing. Start with one. I'm going to right? I won't snooze. So my alarm goes off, like I'm gonna put my feet on the floor
Mm.
and like just say like thanks. Like
Mhm.
starting with that, and then whatever else. If you start sprinting after stuff right after that, cool, but at least you did the one thing. It's kind of like that concept of like always make your bed. So like no matter what happened with your day, like you can like you've made your bed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think another point too with kind of what Steve's saying is like, don't go from sleeping till, let's just say 8. I'm just going to use that. Like, don't go from sleeping till 8 to like trying to wake up at 5. Right? Because like that's not going to work. There is no way that like any human body is like going to be able to do that, right? So just try, and like what's worked for me, I guess I should say, is trying in 15-minute increments or even 30-minute increments, especially with time change, things like that. I actually like the time change because my problem was right before the time change. I'm very into my circadian rhythm. So I like when the sun is up, I am up. When the sun goes down, I'm asleep. Like last night I was like asleep on the couch at 6:30 because it was dark out. So that is just who I am. So I like that the sun's now coming up earlier. But trying just to not crush yourself with that. Like you said, Steve, like we don't want to be putting ourselves into a negative space either. It's all about the collecting the wins. And I think once, back to also mastering your morning, mastering the night before, also being super mindful of when we're going to bed, right? Because you can't go to bed at midnight and expect to wake up at 5 and feel like a million. Most people can't expect to wake up at 5 and feel like $1 million. Me, I am like a 7 to 8 hour minimum sleeper. So that's like one thing I got in my health. My sleep is my foundation of everything. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting old or what that is, but right now, if I don't, like, I used to not have to sleep, but now I do. So making sure I get my sleep. So being super mindful about what time we are going to bed, I think is really important. And then attaching onto that, when are we putting our phones down? Because, that blue light on our phones it's designed for a reason, right? It's designed to keep us on it. All of the things that we have on our phones, all of the apps that we're using, the Gmail alerts, all those notifications, they're red for a reason. Like red is a color that brings attention to it. So everything on our phone is also designed to make us react. So I think, just being mindful of like, what time do you want to go to bed? And just at least same scenario, don't have to do it the first night, but start getting yourself your sleep hygiene improved. That's a term that I learned in the last 2 years is sleep hygiene. So, which is just like, there's things you can do. You can take baths to lower your body temperature, to raise your body temperature. Naturally, when you go to sleep, the human body temperature rises. So you can trick your body into thinking that you're falling asleep by taking a warm bath. Obviously, lavender is super helpful for that. Drinking a tea, there's lots of like nighttime teas, reading, dimming lights. And these are all things I'm learning too from having a child and watching what kind of helps him calm down at night. I'm taking the same things that are helping him and applying them to my own behavior.
Well, I think you bring up a good point with the whole nightly thing, because we all mostly will have, most of us may have a morning routine, but do all of us have a nightly routine that we do? Like I recently, with having, personal things kind of going on in my life, I kind of feel like I kind of lost a little bit of purpose, and so I really wanted to go back and start really focusing on true, genuine gratitude, not like the clothes and foods and shelter, like really, truly, what am I grateful for? And so I just bought a journal. And it allows me to spend 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. And if I tell my body that I want to wake up early, like, hey, I'm going to wake up tomorrow this time, I almost all the time will get up right before the alarm. Like I'm mentally getting my brain ready because I'm going to get up and I know I'm going to do these things tomorrow. And that's really helped me a lot.
That's cool. I love learning stuff about my brain and how powerful our brains are. And just by like getting into those routines and talking to ourselves about, what we want to do, our brain will work with us to do that. So that's really cool. I just wrote down on mine, like create your night routine, because I definitely don't have one right now. So thanks for that, Melissa.
So one thing I wanted to share with you guys that works for me, because I get very scattered brained. I have like this little timer thing. Oh, there it goes. I have this little timer thing on my desk. and you can set it for 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you want. And when I put this on, I do not look at my phone. That is usually my time where I'm like doing admin type of work or whatever it is that I really don't enjoy and I need to focus and not look at the phone. And once I say 15 minutes or so passes by, then I kind of get into the groove of it and that hour will go by super fast. I have 4 kids. So another thing that has helped me in the nighttime is I turn off my notifications. So I no longer get Instagram notifications unless I open the app. My phone goes on sleep mode after 9 p.m. So the only notifications I'll get are from my children and my husband. So if it's an emergency or something, or they're trying to reach me, I can see that, but no one else's notifications are coming through until the morning time. Because I just need to like calm my brain down. And then in addition to that, I put my phone on DND for the night because I do not want the notifications and my phone lighting up right next to my bed, because if I happen to get up to use the bathroom and I see the phone lighting up, I'm going to look at it. So I'm like, I have to turn it off. I have to turn it off. That's it.
Yeah, I flip mine over.
Yeah. That's a good point, Michelle, that our phones do have tools in them too to help us be more productive. Mine goes off at 8:15 at night, so I have to open it, and then I can't use any apps, which like including photos. So like if I'm trying to send my brother a picture of like the Elijah from the day at 8:30, it'll block me from doing that until I give it permission. So but it's been super helpful, right? I'd rather block everything than just, Facebook and Instagram, because I'll end up on Pinterest. I'll find a way to waste time on my phone, right? And that's just in your settings. They also have, for those of you who don't know, they also have time restrictions for every app you have. So I have an hour on Instagram and Facebook as well, because those are the ones I find myself scrolling the most. So I do have those 2 apps blocked. And if anyone has questions about that, feel free to reach out, but that's in your settings. You can set all those timers on your phone. So that's a really good point, Michelle. Thanks for bringing that up.
Except for those emergency alarms that go off.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Hurricane warning.
Oh, and it's like the tornado ones. It's like, look, get somewhere now. And you're like, I don't want to do that. 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I legit turned off notifications for all day except for my kids' school, which I know could be dangerous, but I have learned in this business that there is no real emergency. And if I know I'm waiting for something, then I will periodically check. Again, not something easy to do, but I turn notifications off for everything all day except for my kids' school.
Yeah, I need to turn the emergency one off. It's brutal.
Yeah.
And
it was the worst
very
sound.
loud and startling, right? It's not like a pleasant noise.
Well, and they've all been at like 11:30 or like 2 a.m. recently with the storms. It was like Ian when it came through was that. It was like 2, 3, right? And then it's mine and my wife's, and we're like, and they're never the same time.
Heart attack.
Yeah.
Then
definitely, especially with turning off the notifications, I think for Gmail, for all of us in this industry, that's one that's super important, is turning off the notifications on the email. In my first couple of years of business, I was like, I have to respond to everything so fast. And my phone would be there on the table. And if I'm having lunch with someone, I would see all the emails coming in, and it started giving me anxiety, and like, I would lose focus on who I'm speaking to, because now I'm worried about the email I have to respond to. So I turned that off.
Yeah.
That's going into boundaries. And I do want to go into that next. I just want to share one thing too, if you guys haven't seen it yet. When you pull down on your iPhone from the top and it has like your little focus button, you can now add all different ones. So I love this because I have my driving one. I have like obviously a work and a sleep one set. And I also have a personal one that is just like, if I'm like on a date night or something, I can put the sitter's number in there, and you can enter numbers you want to get calls from, or, block, pick whatever contact. So that's a really cool feature. But yeah, boundaries, because that affects our schedule too. I think that setting boundaries is like the most important thing we can do for ourselves in this business. It, like you said, Melissa, like there are no real estate emergencies. I know it feels like it a lot of times. But you know, our being our best selves is like the real thing that we need to worry about most when we're dealing with our customers. So I think not being afraid to set those boundaries up front. And that can look like, you know, you giving someone hours. After I had my son, I am very, very firm on my boundaries, and it's a beautiful thing. I don't schedule appointments before 10 o'clock now because I don't want to be chasing. I was just like everybody, right? Like I if I set a 9 o'clock appointment and then, you know, something happened with drop off at school, I get there at 9:05, the rest of my day is off, right? From just that little 5 minutes, because 5 turns to 7, turns to 10, turns to 20. And so I started not scheduling in-person appointments until 10 o'clock, unless it's like a coffee appointment. And the other thing is I'm very, very clear that I drop my son off at between 8:30 and 9. So I will get back to you by 9 o'clock, possibly between 8:30 and 9, but definitely by 9 the next day. And that after 6:30, you might not reach me because I'm a mom. It's like poof, I turn into a mom at 6:30. You know, I kind of make it a joke about it. You know, like Cinderella turned back into the pumpkin. I turn into a mom. And people are so respectful of that. Like they'll call me and it'll be like 6:35 and they're like, I'm sorry, I know you're with Elijah. And it just creates this whole different connection with my customers and with fellow agents because they are respectful of time. People know, right? They know we're people. And I have found that people want to be a part of something bigger. They want to be a part of like moms helping, you know, with their family. They want to be a part of a new agent building their business. And people do understand. And if there's somebody who doesn't understand and like flips out of the program because you set a boundary with them, that's probably not the person you want to be working with. Or did you say, make sure? Yes, I love that, Jamie. That is awesome. And I'm sure, I don't know if you can unmute or if you want to type in, but how has the response been when you start it like that? Do you have positive feedback, or are people usually receptive, or? And if anyone, okay, sorry.
People are always receptive. And I always talk to them and let them know that, you know, this is a personality thing and we have to mesh and we have to get along and we have to be trusted. If it's an emergency, text me. I'm going to be able to get back to you a lot faster on a text. I'm not going to pick up a phone when I'm putting my kids to bed. And my people respect that and they've been great with it.
That's awesome.
And I feel like that's an important part of your initial setting a boundary and kind of setting expectations with a new client is like outlining, hey, I don't answer my phone past say 6:30. If that's a problem with them, then maybe it's not a good fit.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think too, you know, you're just also like letting them know from the beginning it's the expectation that every relationship fails because of an expectation not being hit, right? Like if you can think back to all the relationships that have gone sideways, it's because there's been either a lack of communication or an expectation, right? And that is very true in business as well. So when you set it from the beginning, people are absolutely going to be more receptive than if you try to set it after, you know, in the middle of a deal or after they go under contract. And like Melissa said earlier, I think it's super important to let people know, like, hey, and Jamie just said, you know, like you can text me and if I see your text and I can get to it, I am totally going to, but otherwise I will get back to you by the following day. And then actually, I think the most important part is to actually not respond to them beyond your boundary times, right? Like don't get in a habit of answering because you can that night. Like if it's a situation where you're in negotiation, one of those type, or there's an offer, they want to write an offer, you know, that's a different story. But making sure, I had a text this morning at 6 something and I picked up my phone because I was up like ready to reply and I'm like, no, we're not going to start that up, right? Because then every time that they have something to tell me at 6 o'clock, they're going to be expecting me to answer moving forward. So I sometimes have to like put an alarm in my phone if I open it. It just says like text them back at 9. So yeah, that's good. Does anyone else have any boundary setting tips or best practices, or even, you know, like anything struggling with that at all?
I think you gals are hitting a lot of it doesn't have to be overcomplicated, but again, it's having the conversation, and it's not like you have to deliver it in like this, I'm done at 6:30 and that's that, right? Because it's not, you're not making anything against them. Because typically, a lot of times, especially in today's where I find people ask, I'd be like, well, when can I write you? It's like, well, listen, you can write me whenever. You know, it's not invasive to reach out. If I'm not available, like I won't get to you. But again, like if it's an emergency thing and you write me and I'm sitting on the couch and it's like, I know you're going to lose sleep over it, I can say like, no, it's not a big deal, because 99% of the time it's not a big deal. And I think people, you know, it's part of that is I try to remember that however many transactions I've done or you've done, right? This could be their first one, or maybe it's their second, but it's their second one after 7 years. So they still don't really know. And like things can seem more heightened to them. And I think we can actually mandate it a lot better by having your communication and process lined up front. So they don't even have a question at 6:30. It's all the communication's been done to where it shouldn't be a surprise at 7 o'clock. They're like, hey, I want to put in an offer, because you probably already had a conversation with them earlier and like, hey, well, if you want to, you need to let me know. And this is how you can let me know tonight if it's going to be tonight. If not, we'll submit it in the morning. And which like, I don't do that part. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think a contract submitted at 8 a.m. is just as fine as 9 p.m. Because what sellers, listing agents forwarding it to the seller, like that's not just a direct thing, right? It has a chain to go through, and everyone's probably prefers to do it in a working hour anyways.
I think
And then you're the first email tomorrow instead of the last email today.
that's a really good point. So yeah, I think that's good. And Jamie, I'm just going to read what your messages are saying since the people on the recording can't hear it. Jamie said she makes sure she talks about her mom and family boundary at the first appointment. And then she also has it written up in her buyer and seller handbook, and they know that if it's a deal issue or emergency, they can get me. So yeah, very, very good. Yeah. And it is, Michelle, it is super hard. Like it is hard, right? At the beginning. I think the biggest moment for me was I went on vacation, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago. I had 13 deals pending. It was the most I've ever had pending. I was so stressed out. I was turning it over to my friend who was a broker, an incredible broker. I had there was like 2 or 3 inspection negotiations going on. I had one challenging client or customer who was like, you know, I thought for sure this guy is going to ask for everything and they're going to give him nothing. Like it just was one of those. And I went for 9 days. It was 9 days without service. I sent the email, closed my computer, and drove to my trip. And when I got back, first thing I did was when I got service, was open my computer, and every single deal was under contract. So it turns out I'm not actually that important to the deal, right? And I think like a lot of times we think that it has to be us that is that person. And really, you know, we can take a step back. We can breathe. People are going to have a better experience with us when we're well-rounded and like a more holistic human than just this real estate robot who is responding at all hours and, you know, not sleeping and all of that. So why not how? Is that what that is? Why not how?
Oh, I meant to say who, not how. Have you guys read that book? Yeah, that one's really good. Because sometimes you're asking yourself the wrong question, right? Because we don't always have to get it done, but how am I going to get this done? It's half the time by somebody else. Like this is where my vision planning like helps me in my benefit, because who do I need to get this done? You know, because we can't do it all, but in order for me to build a scalable business, I have got to lean on somebody, some people, systems, tools, leverage somehow. And so that book was really good with really helping me change the question I was asking. You know, not how am I going to get this done, but who can help me get this done?
Yeah, there's a book, Run Like Clockwork, and it's about being able to run your business like clockwork, and the whole like concept of it, right? you not being the most important piece of your business, because if you are, then you always have to be there. So it's figuring out how to have those operations in place so you can go on vacation. Really, like the premise of the book is like to get to a point where like you take a month vacation and you don't do shit. Is the
Yeah.
idea. Very hard, right? I have not accomplished it. I need to get back to it. It is on the goal sheet, but it is like, it's what we do is hard because it's not just a vacation. And like all of us, I would say, started in a one, you know, you were the person. Like,
Mhm.
I do the deal, I'm the person, you do everything, every piece of it. And so going on vacation wasn't just, well, I have this cost of this vacation. Is if I miss this phone call, like I'm also losing commission. So now I've lost X amount extra. And the stress of that is insane. Vacation used to be the worst. But when you actually build out and have a team, my wife and I went to Rome and Greece this year for 2 weeks, and I didn't do much. Like I checked in on stuff and like, hey, you guys okay? But like, I didn't do anything. And I got okay with having that away message go and say, I'm not here. Here's who you can reach out to. And it's amazing how many people don't give a shit if you're not there.
They're like, okay, cool. Who do I talk to? Yeah.
Great. Enjoy your trip.
Yeah.
I was actually just on a Zoom right before this. Sorry, let me turn off my AC. Right before this, and it was on time management with Melody, and she recommended a virtual receptionist. So she has like a Google phone number, Google Voice, and then that number will get routed to a virtual receptionist that answers the phone calls when she is on vacation. And she gives them the information on like who it needs to go to so that it can be handled while she's away and it gets taken care of.
And I do the same thing with that I do with my phone boundaries with this. Brady and I have 2 trips a year that they're non-negotiable. One is the week before Labor Day, and that is 9 days without cell phone service. No one can contact me, even if they want to or I want to. And then the other ones are wedding anniversary on New Year's. And I start telling people, you know, that when we are getting listings within 3 months of that, even now, I probably would do like 4 months with that, so that the people are aware, so that like when we went on our trip this year, every single person was kind of expecting that call, like not expecting it, but knew it was coming and was like, okay, great. Like Steve said, like, who's going to be taking care of us? Who's our point of contact? Have so much fun. Like this year, we had one seller who love her so much because Brady was like, I'm going to check in and da, 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 while we're walking out, and I'm standing behind him. I'm like, he's not, or else he's coming back without a wife, you know, like just joking. I'm like, he will be on vacation with me. And she sent him a text afterwards that was like, I just want you to know, like, you have permission from your customers to go be a husband and go be a father and go be like a human in the world and go on vacation. Like, we are good. And it was so nice. And she's like, I want you to promise me one thing. And he's like, what's that? She's like, you won't answer your phone. And it was so nice to just have somebody on that end be such a cheerleader of it. And I think that, you know, we can be pleasantly surprised when we put boundaries up and people support them. I want to kind of flow from this into that morning schedule, because I know that Nisa, you were talking about it, and I think that one of the things that I've been hearing a lot is about mastering those first 3 to 4 hours of your workday. For me, 4 hours seems like a lot. So in my head, I can do 3. I can stay focused probably for a solid 2.5 of them, but we're aiming for 3, right? So with those 3 hours, I prioritize what's most important to me. And that's typically going through that checklist we went over. Thanks, Steve. That checklist we went over last week. And going through, okay, what do I need to do first? In my morning routine, for work, I have check emails because I still check them at home when I wake up in the morning, but I'm really, really trying to create a habit of checking them at the office. And only because I want to create that boundary for my mental health where I'm not on call 24/7, even if I'm not responding to the emails. So I would say, you know, responding any immediate deal issues should be a priority in the morning. The number one job that we have is prospecting. next to taking care of our customers, of course. So making sure that prospecting time is in the morning. I have even on there creating content, because to me, that's prospecting, because I use my social media to prospect. So having content done in the morning, and then just reaching out to past customers as well. You know, I really am focused right now on getting Google reviews. So that's something that I think that we're definitely I'm seeing an uptick in leads. We had a listing appointment last weekend from someone who found us on Google because we had reviews. So I think that that's definitely going to be something that impacts people's businesses here coming up, is people looking at reviews, because it's getting a little bit more challenging in the market, right? So I am focused on getting at least 3 reviews a week. And that's done in my morning routine. And that's something that every day I'm checking to see. Like, I reach out on Monday, and then I have my system in place. Like, okay, by Wednesday, did they do it? Okay, just to send a reminder text, and then a Friday again, like, love you so much. Can you please do this? Thanks so much, you know? But just getting in that routine of doing that stuff is what's helping me out for my morning. And then after I get those 3 hours done, if I can stay focused for that time, that's helping me fill in my afternoon. That is absolutely what's giving me my appointments, my listing appointments, my buyer appointments, and agent appointments. All the things I'm doing is because of those 3 hours being hyper focused. So that's what I'm seeing. What else are you guys doing in your mornings before you get into your crazy days? Nothing.
Been taking athletic greens for a couple months now. I find that's nice.
What is that?
Athletic greens, it's just like a, I guess you just call it like a health supplement, but it's got like all the vegetables and stuff that I don't eat.
Cool. So it just helps
Like
you.
a same like a health thing, right? It's kind of like I would say like the end of like, all right, like shit's about to get real. You're gonna have to take your phone off, do not, because I try to have my phone off of do not disturb by like 8:15. Where then it's like, all right, like
right before
the
you go to
day's
the
here.
gym. Yeah, right before you like chug it real quick, and you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, who needs something?
That's awesome. Everyone's talking about exercise too. Lori just mentioned that. That's great. Journaling, practicing gratitude, and really reading daily Bible verse. I have this call or this YouTube video that I watch. I've watched it probably, I don't even know, hundreds of times. It's 19 minutes long. And so I put it on when I'm getting in the shower, and it's just it's kind of spiritual. It's Gabby Bernstein. So I don't know if any of you follow her, but it's like spiritual and life too. And it just talks about a lot about like giving up control of things. And I find that that's really helpful, especially in this business, like realizing that we actually are just facilitators of transactions. We're not here to tell somebody how much to offer and things like that. We guide them. But it really helps get me in the right mindset for the day, and I can do it. I've listened to it so many times, I can like pick up a new thing every time I hear it. So that's been helpful to me. Taylor, did you have something you were going to add?
I just think it's really important with the morning routines, because mine's shifted so much, and I feel like it depends on what season of your life and your business you're in at that moment. But don't be too hard on yourself if you skip something. If your morning routine doesn't look like someone else's that's been waking up at 5 a.m. for the past 10 years, it's all relative and it's so different. It just has to be what's going to work for you and set you up for success that day.
For sure.
Think that's what you just said. And what I heard is run your race.
Yeah.
And
well, I love that you mentioned the different seasons, because I feel like that's what I'm experiencing. Like, just to be truly transparent, I had a routine most of this year. I've had some things happen in my personal life that has completely changed it, you know? And so I read another book recently where it's really challenging me to focus on my purpose. I am not my job. And I feel like because we love what we do, we have to be very careful, because I could do this all day long because I love what I get to do, but is that healthy? That my life purpose is not my job. And so really trying to take some time back, take a step back and really figure out, who am I? Because I'm not my job title. And so I'm constantly, like, just lately having to ask myself that question and really maybe discover, maybe read some other books to help me figure out this purpose, because things aren't happening to me, they're happening for me. I just don't know why yet. And so that recently has been just what I've been kind of going through. So girl, that was good.
Love it. We are getting close to the end, and I love this talk. I'm all about routine and figuring out how to be how to live an elevated life. Like, this business is so amazing, right? I love that we can be in different seasons and take a step back from maybe going at our production 100% and still have a good career. And then we can have a different season of life and be all in for work. And it's still success can look however we choose it to look. And I think that, the foundation of that is honoring who we are as humans, as women, as men, as moms, as dads, as brothers, sisters, whatever. I think that the true foundation of success is what it means to you. And I'm loving this conversation, because I think, all of it, time management, morning routine, night routine, boundaries, all of those things are honoring who we are as people. So I love that this is the direction we went in. Does anyone have anything else that they want to discuss or chat about with our last 7 minutes or so?
Any particular books or podcasts that you're reading or have read that you think are good to have on the list? Anybody?
I just read one recently. It's not a new book, but I've heard about it for a long time, and I found it by accident in this little tiny bookstore. It was meant to be. Anyway, The Alchemist.
Oh, I love that one. Love
Yeah.
that one.
I heard about it for so long, but I had been given so many books this year that I was like, oh, I don't have to buy any this year. I've got something that I can kind of read and go through. And then I just so happened to find this little hole in the wall bookstore, and it was there, and I was like, oh, I feel like this is so meant to be. Then I read it and I was like, oh my god, this is so good. So if you haven't read it right
here,
yeah, so
Wow.
good, so good.
yeah.
That book was waiting for you, by the way. It was just waiting on a shelf for you to find it.
It's a good one. It's
Yeah. I started doing meditations by Marcus Aurelius is a good one. I like the Daily Stoic stuff. Ryan Holiday is a really good writer. He's got a lot of good books. I'd recommend pretty much anything he writes.
Yeah.
But it's just the Stoic lifestyle and mindset of philosophy is just very interesting, and it's kind of incredible that so that book was actually Marcus Aurelius writing just to himself on a daily basis. It had nothing to do with oh, this is for the people and whoever found the stuff, and they translated it into so we can read it. But it's pretty incredible how long ago that was. What kind of person he was pretty insane.
Wow.
Awesome. What else we got? Michelle or Taylor, do you have one? I saw you both are unmuted, so I'm picking on you.
One that's for personal development, it's The Mountain Is You. It's all about mindset. I like listening to that one. And I'm
Is that
an
a
audio.
podcast or a book?
It's a book. The Mountain Is You.
For podcasts, I really like, if you guys have ever listened to The Skinny Confidential, that's a really good one. They have a lot of different guests that are in either the health or wellness or business space. So every episode you're kind of hearing something different. So there's episodes for everyone.
Ed Milet's very good too. He's got a good podcast.
That's the book I was gonna actually.
Great speaking voice as well.
Yeah, I'm audibling The Power of One More right now, which is a really great, just pushing yourself 1% better, if that's where you're at. The Power of One More by Ed Milet. So it's been cool. And it's been confidence building for me because it's just like one more, like just one more.
Mhm.
That's it, right? Like, you know, if I'm going to make 5 calls, what's it if I make 6, you know? So
Mhm.
that's been a really cool concept. And I also use it in when I'm walking or running. I do like a run walk if I do run. And so I'm like, all right, one more light pull. And so it's been kind of cool to do that. So
You guys ever see the 1 degree on YouTube, that video? That's kind of similar to what you're describing. Like I think it's that water at 211 degrees isn't boiling, but it does at 212 degrees. And it
Yeah.
talks about all the different ways that that one more, you know, kind of thing that we're talking about has happened in different, all these examples. So it's a really good one if you guys want to watch it. It's like maybe a 3 or 4 minute video. It's called 1 degree.
Yeah, it's good. I think, you know, there's a million good books out there, and it's like a lot of them have very similar topics or kind of what they're getting at, but the one may not land for you, and like to where you're like, oh, I get it. Like for someone's got to speak in your language a bit. Trevor Moad is a guy. So he actually recently passed. He had cancer, but he was Russell Wilson's mind coach. Russell Wilson, any non-sports, he was a quarterback. So I have huge sports football
Sierra's
background. So like,
husband? You mean Sierra's husband?
correct. Year he's having, he is Sierra's husband.
He is now.
Right.
Totally different topic.
So, and I forget how I stumbled into him, but he has two books. It's It Takes What It Takes is the first one, and then he came out with this one before he passed, Getting to Neutral, forward by Sierra. So there you go. To me, works like I get all the references and stuff land really well with me because it's a lot of like sports related. But the idea of it, and not that positive is positive, right? Not just something can be negative and it's real, right? This hurricane's coming. Factual. There's really not a positive about it. So you can't just say like, it's no problem, like the storm's going to turn and it's going to go away, like nothing's going on. It doesn't help anything really being positive. It's false. So it's like, but shifting to a neutral mindset is real, where you can say, hey, the storm's coming. I can make sure all my stuff's away. I can get some water, make sure we have stuff if the power goes out, and worry about like, well, what's the next best thing I can do to move on from this current moment? Because it may not be good. And you can't just falsely say it's positive because that's fleeting. But you can be neutral and realistic of what it is and actionable things to take forward.
That's a really good book for our industry, because I feel like when I had the shift from delivering good news or bad news to delivering just news, it was a big, like, I didn't fear conversations. And you know, I've even had an agent I trained, and she was like, yeah, but I don't like confrontation. I'm like, just reframe. It's not confrontation, you know, it's just a conversation that, you know, you have discomfort with. Sometimes we tell people news too, and they're just like, okay. We had a customer who's couldn't wire their bank wouldn't wire from Illinois, and they closed yesterday. And so Friday they found out the bank wouldn't wire without them being there in person. So Friday we were like, oh gosh, how are we going to tell them? And we told them. They're like, cool, we'll go on a road trip. And we're like, what? Just a road trip to Illinois? They're like, yeah, we'll be back, no big deal. So it's funny how we put these prescriptions on people too, and you know, it's not always that way.
Yeah, you don't need to make it worse than it usually actually is, or that it doesn't mean it's a big problem for people. Because again, sometimes it is what it is. Like, hey, I don't bank with that bank in Illinois, you do.
Yeah. So any other last books, any other podcasts? I'm going to email all this stuff out to everybody. So I threw a book on there. It's called The Gap and the Gain, and it's the subtitle is the High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success. And that book, Audible on that book, is actually my preferred, because there's 2 authors, Dan Sullivan and a Dr. Benjamin, I can't remember his name. Hardy, yes. And Dan Sullivan owned an elite coaching company, like one of the top, like coached like the like coach like the Grant Cardones, coach like those high level achievers. And so he talked about, you know, like they would have these goals and then they'd hit it and then they'd be bad and have to keep climbing. And because they were like disappointed in themselves for hitting goals, right? So that's a really good book, because I find myself in that situation a lot of times, like that, you know, I'm hitting my goal and I'm already on to the next goal versus celebrating that. So that's the gap in the gain. And yeah, does anyone else have any ones they want to throw in before we get off the call, or anything else they want to add?
I actually have one question for all of you realtors. So next week, we're doing like our Legends Millennial panel. The question here, one of Erica's agents is actually, she made her be on it and she is so upset about it, but
She loves it. Carrie loves it.
she's big and look at me. So anyways, I'm moderating it this year and we're trying to like get some questions together of like, right, really good group of millennials that are actually producing in the area and good group of, you know, legends that are producing in our area. Is there any questions, if you had an opportunity to ask either side or anybody in general for the real estate in this market, just in general, that you would want to ask somebody that's like a high producer to advice on? And if you don't have any right now, great. If you think of one, even if you like could like email Megan or Erica, that would be cool. Cause we're just trying to get a good list together to make this valuable for everybody that goes.
I'll throw that in the email too, Steve, to have people write back. I would want to know, I would want to ask the legends about how they got through the last shifts in markets, the ones that they've experienced and what those experiences were like. Because I mean, I'm sure there's some that have been in it since the 80s when they had
Yeah.
15% rates, you know, and just talking about that stuff and how they framed things back then. And even like 2008 is obviously significantly different than this round. I'd be interested to hear how some agents survived or thrived through that, or just survived if they were, you know, going by not.
Right.
So
Yeah. Excellent.
all right, guys. It has been an awesome hour. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here and contributing today. We will be back next Wednesday, the 16th, I believe is the date. Yep, Wednesday the 16th, and we will be here at 2:00 talking about marketing that works. And then our last call is going to be that Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. We're going to move it earlier. I think we talked about noon, but it might be 11 Eastern time. We'll have that figured out, and we will be here going over the last call with you guys. And then from there, we'll create a plan moving forward. So thank you all for being here, and we will see you guys next week.
In